The conference room felt like a refrigerated box, dark wood walls, a window throwing back the reflection of antenna stacks across the street. Old paper layered over weak coffee in the air. Evan leaned back and flicked his fingernail against the glass table, a click-click that sounded like static on a bad channel. "You're better at twisting knobs than running a company," he said. I didn't answer. Out in the hallway, a server fan hummed a steady line, and Harriet's pen tapped the edge of a green case file like she was keying Morse. Time to begin. "Let's start," Harriet said. "Your father's will contains provisions on transmission infrastructure and the frequency licenses." Evan smiled like a man posing for a camera. "I'll take the studios, the building, everything you can see, and those old radios." He tilted his chin toward me. "They're yours, a keepsake for the hard-working soldier." A fly crossed the light, looped back. I remembered the studio when I was a kid and my father's rule. If you want to broadcast well, learn to listen first. Listen to the room. Listen to the line. Listen to the quiet. I set 2 fingers on the table's edge and held my silence the way we train to: wait until the signal is clean, then transmit. "Phones off, please," Harriet said. "We don't need interference." Evan blacked out his screen with a theatrical tap. Sam sat behind him, arms folded, eyes calm. "The company splits in 2, Harriet went on. "Topside, studios, offices, real estate. Core, the licenses, the tower chain, and the county's emergency service contract." Evan laughed. "That old contract, I'm modernizing everything. I've got a rebrand deck, add partners waiting." He turned toward me. "You can keep the nostalgia closet, hang it up for fun." I met his eyes. All I saw in them was cold LED glare. I thought of the mountain where wind yanked guy lines out of my hands, of a wet night when we raised a relay to save a dying link. I wanted to tell him logos don't keep people alive. I let Harriet talk instead. "Clause 11, she said, opening the file. Paper shifted like a dry wave. "On the infrastructure and frequency licenses." Evan's snapping sped up. Sam leaned forward a hair. Damp wood in the room carried me straight back to the Coles' backyard, charcoal ticking in a quiet grill. I noticed my own fingertips beating a 3 count on the table, the rhythm I used to test a mic. Harriet looked straight at us. "The infrastructure has been placed into an irrevocable trust. It activated upon his death." She paused. "The trustee is—" The room shrank. I heard the fan, the fly at the glass, my own breath. "His daughter, Echo." The sound drained out of the air. Evan shot to his feet. "What? No, she's military. She doesn't know how to operate anything." Harriet closed the file. "He knew who keeps the signal running. The trust includes the licenses, the sites, and the right to negotiate the emergency contract. The studios and building are under separate terms. The infrastructure is under Echo's management." Evan's laugh fractured into little brittle pieces. "So she gets a pile of scrap. I control content. Without me, what would you even put on the air?" It was the first time I spoke. "Without infrastructure," I said, "you broadcast into the void." I leaned in. "You want to keep talking or let the lawyer finish reading?" Harriet lifted an envelope. "He left a letter as well." Evan reached. Sam set a hand on the back of his chair, light but unarguable. I breathed slow. There was no winning or losing here, just the board sliding back to where it belonged. Outside, wind rubbed along metal, the sound slipping across the glass like a bow over a string. Harriet read the operating terms. SLA with the county, storm mode failover. Evan fidgeted, pulled out his phone, put it down again. "That's enough for today," Harriet said at last. "We'll reconvene on operations. Echo, assess the sites. Evan, prepare your studio materials." Evan jerked upright. "I'll prove this trust is a joke. I'll buy it out. I'll—" "Go ahead and try," I said, voice low. "Signals have rules." I took the file. The cover was cool and heavier than it looked, the weight of nights hauling cable on a ridgeline. "Let the signal say the rest." In the hall, the fan noise grew clearer, a steady line like a heart set to a calm frequency. At the far end, the door to the roof caught a slab of gray sky. In my head, a relay lamp blinked green. I knew I'd be going back up my own mountain, this time the one named after the city. Before I stepped into the next storm, I let myself stand there one beat longer, listening to the good kind of silence, the sound of a place waiting to be stitched back together. On the training range, the wind always speaks before the rain, this thin, metallic chill that slides under your sleeves. The sky hung like sheet lead, the generator thrumming like an animal that never sleeps. "Who's climbing?" First Lieutenant Harris barked, short, fair, no sugar. My hand went up before my brain could compose a speech. Not bravery, just that hiss in my headset snagging on a pocket of silence, like someone out there was calling and couldn't find the door in. Diaz ran a harness through his belt. Patel hugged the antenna mast. I shouldered the relay box. Bowman, our field medic, stuffed an extra roll of tape in my pocket. "For just in case," he said. My stomach held sour coffee and a rushed breakfast. My head felt pane glass clear. The slope wasn't long, but every step pressed a pound heavier. Wet pine bark, spongy earth, boot soles sucking at mud. Diaz babbled about a taco truck outside the main gate to keep his breathing even. I grunted, eyes on contour lines tucked inside my vest. Signal rarely takes the straight path. It glances, breaks, sneaks the wind troughs like a kid slipping fences you can't see. My father's old rule walked with me. If you want people to hear, respect the way sound travels. The wind shifted and I put a fist down, heads low. Hair snagged under my helmet, salt sweat at my lips, taste of iron that meant rain was close. We topped a rock shelf with the forest falling away beneath us. Far off, the city looked like a circuit board. Roads were traces, roofs were capacitors, people a current moving through. I rolled a tarp, Patel planted the tripod, Diaz kicked stakes. "Echo this angle," Patel called. I dropped to a knee, one hand pinning the map sleeve against the gusts. Quick math by habit. Line of sight to the fire station, valley shadow. What crosswind would steal? 2 steps left, 1 notch lower, I said, and translated out loud. Too high, the mast turns into a sail. Too low, the pines eat your signal. Diaz snorted. "Told you, give Echo the compass and go." The last stake seated and the sky dumped like someone tipped a barrel. Rain needled our faces, the smell of soil punching our lungs open. The relay case knocked my hip with each move. I popped the lid, board still dry, wrapped the desiccant like swaddling a small heart, fed it power. Indicator blink, die, blink. "High noise floor," Patel frowned. I pressed my ear to the metal, superstition or craft, I couldn't tell. Something was wrong. The wind dragged a long line across the ridge, whistling sharp. "Drop another notch," I said. Diaz locked his elbows, eased the mast down, tendon ropes jumping under skin. The wind yanked back like a thief. His boots slid on moss, his weight poured toward the edge. The safety line sang tight, a crisp snap. No thinking, just throwing myself into the guy line, wrapping, bracing. Pain lit my left shoulder, my knee grated rock, a penny taste of blood then gone in rain. "Hold," I shouted, the wind ate half my word. Patel Dove drove a backup pin. Bowman planted a boot against my spine, counterweight. Diaz cursed, then laughed through the panic, finding his footing again. "I still owe that taco," he panted. I let out a ripped little laugh, my teeth remembered being alive. Rain shrank the world to arm's length. I set another anchor, changed the antenna's lean, let it kiss a lower trunk so it wouldn't try to fly. "Power again," I said. Patel flipped the switch. Amber, then green, then a string of small, steady blinks like a heart relearning rhythm. The tiny earpiece in my jacket buzzed, the white hiss thinned, a voice rose out of the mist. "Dispatch, copy, testing channel." I closed my eyes for 1 second. Not a miracle, physics cooperating with discipline. We checked 2-way. Lieutenant Harris answered from the valley, voice granite. Good signal, stable, send the packet. I read numbers, penciled them into the AAR, pencil because ink runs when the sky decides it will. Note gust risk, Bowman said. I nodded, adding a line on trading height for stability, nothing you'd put on a poster, exactly the sort of trade that keeps people breathing when the weather turns. When the rain let up, Diaz flopped down and laughed himself hollow. Echo, you can hear the wind talk. Wind doesn't talk, I said, tucking the notebook away. It reminds. We coiled the lines, threw another tarp over the relay, flagged it with reflective tape. On the descent, the dirt turned to grease. Our boots felt like we'd strapped bricks on. I held the climb cadence anyway. 3 steps, breathe. 3 steps, breathe. In my head, the new link stretched like an invisible rope from the ridge to strangers I hadn't met yet, people who might need a voice to cross a storm. Back at the motor pool, hair wet at my nape, we lined gear for inspection. Lieutenant Harris passed, didn't gush, just tapped the relay case like he was tapping my shoulder. Good, he said, one word. It weighed more than a parade. That night the barracks smelled like drying socks and nylon rain shells. I recopied my notes clean, sketched a small diagram with a star where the dead zone would have been if we'd set the mast higher. I didn't think about pay or ribbons. I thought about the human curve under a flawed sky and how a simple box becomes a bridge. Much later, when I found an old radio in my father's dusty storeroom, that rain night came back, not from nostalgia, but because muscle memory remembered the rope burn and the lean. Part of me still stands on that rock shelf, wind tugging my sleeves, a city far off buzzing like a board that wants solder. That part taught me to keep quiet when quiet is the tool, and speak on the right frequency when it isn't. So when I walked out of Harriet Cole's office today with the trust thudding my chest like a green lamp flicking on, I didn't feel like arguing anyone into submission. I felt like tying things together. The craft is the same. You don't fight the storm to beat it. You read it, lean with it, move. Thinking of Evan and his glossy slides didn't make me angry. It made me see a coverage map with dangerous blanks. People get lost in the place they think they shine brightest. I nearly lost Diaz to a single arm's length of wind. I owe this city a clean signal the way I owed my team the right knot. I shut my notebook and killed the lamp. Outside, wind ticked the leaves, a steady tone I've learned to love. Proof that something is still running, whether anyone's looking or not. The station sits on a corner where steam from the laundromat fogs the sidewalk and a donut shop throws oil-sweet air down the block. Red brick face, a sun-faded sign, a tin roof pocked with old storms. I push the door and the soundscape I grew up in rolls out. Neon buzz, a tired AC wheeze, a country riff leaking from the studio door. In the lobby case, vintage mics gleam like spent cartridges. A handwritten note beneath them. Do not touch. I head straight for the rack room. Cables crawl like roots. A few are knotted where somebody fixed it fast. On the shelf, a spare antenna frame, a handful of BNCs beside electrical tape. The junior tech, concert T, nervous smile, looks up. Your Echo. He says the call sign like it's a rumor, which, thanks to the trust, it now is. I nod, take a paint pen, mark the tarnished terminations, and pop the breaker cabinet. Touching it is like touching a living memory. Nights on ridge lines, mornings reading VSWR with my fingertips. Signal's been sketchy, he says. Songs keep losing their breath. Bring up the downlink monitor, I tell him. I lean into the tiny speaker. The floor hiss sounds like sand. I pull a jumper, polish the pin, seat it true. Who last redid the ground? Before me. I slide under the rack, damp dust and hot metal. The ground strap is clamped to painted pipe, grounded to a feeling. I smirk. There are failures you don't catch on reports. You catch them by professional shame. I move the clamp to bare steel, clean until the metal shines like a correct thought. Bent in the rack, I hear shoes and cologne. Evan arrives with 2 suits and a girl holding a camera. He comes in like weather with intent, loud enough for the studio to hear. "This city needs a new image," he says, flashing a rainbow deck on his tablet. "New logo, open studio, fans can shoot behind the scenes. Younger, viral." He rests a hand on the junior tech's shoulder like anointing him. I wipe my hands on cargo pants and stand. "Logos don't push signal over the South Ridge," I say, mild. He laughs without looking. "We'll get to the technicals. This is the brand story. Do you know brand?" I watch the monitor's little rattle and the rain pearls clinging to the window frame. "The best brand is an ambulance in the outskirts still hearing the call," I say. One of the suits smiles like his tie is too tight. My phone buzzes. "Martha, pile up on the river highway. EMS radio went empty for a few minutes. Can you swing by the hillside?" Evan's still preaching paint colors. "I'm stepping out," I say. "We're discussing the big picture," he snaps. "Exactly why I'm going," I answer. The hill site sits behind an abandoned lot, a pencil-straight mast pinned into a gray sky. The junior tech and I climb the steel stair. The wind tastes like rust and wet grass. The hut is hot and breathless. I palm the transmitter, steady vibration with a skip in it, like a heart dropping beats. I lift the lid, a dead auxiliary fan, a loose connector, a filter pad black as chimney soot. "Looks like no one's opened this in a while," I say. "Evan told us not to touch infrastructure," he whispers. Out the window, a rig swings into the River Road turn. Its light wash climbs a far brick wall. I pull gloves, swap the fan, knock the grit loose, seat the plug, check the ground and the lightning bond. "Change the filter, too," I say. When we power up, the tone drops into a deeper register, like a torso relaxing after a cramp. On the screen, the line smooths, the test path loses its thorns. Back in the lot, Martha leans against an EMT unit, hair tucked, cheeks wind bright. She hands me water. "We hit the edge zone and it's clean now. A minute ago, whole sentences just vanished. Now it stitches. 1 fan, 1 filter, 1 clamp," I say. She grins. "Same in the rig. Sometimes the fix is tape in the right place." She runs the crash for me, rain oil, 3-car kiss, an old man cinched into a stubborn belt. "Radios are our bloodstream," she says, "no theater in it." "Thanks." When I get back, Evan is in front of a makeshift backdrop, telling a camera about a new spirit and a cultural bridge. I stand outside the frame and listen to the words pour like colored water. I don't hate the words. I hate when they become a curtain over the blind spot. I leave a note on the tech bench. What we just did, a full-week inspection plan, the river zone circled in red. I add a line to restart the SLA test with the county and to install heartbeat monitoring so the next dead fan is a ticket, not a rumor. Evan spots me. His camera smile slides into a networking smile. "Have a nice field trip." "EMS here's better," I say. "We need a maintenance budget, and we need to stop hanging wires with tape." "You don't get it," he says, clipped. "We need a story that inspires. People must see new and shiny." "The best new is it works," I answer. "And shiny doesn't splice a backup link." He starts to retort. The camera blinks and he turns back to the light, shoulders square, chin lifted like he paid for the class. Late afternoon, I'm alone in the rack room, door propped. A corridor draft drags coffee and toner into this little cave. I open my AAR pad, sketch the site, arrow the wind, note the fan, the filter, the cadence for a replacement cycle. Last line isn't technical. People reset the morning checklist. Put your hands on a termination, not just the logo. The anchor's voice reads whether a flat white band. For a second, the city is a circuit I can picture fully soldered. The door cracks. Martha peeks in. Am I interrupting? Nope. I kick a chair out. You look more at home with knotted wire than red carpet, she grins. Red carpet makes me itch, I say. Knots I can unpick. She thinks then, years ago I almost switched careers. We turned around on a call because comms died mid-route. Folks called it an act of God. Truth was a fan had been dead a long time. She meets my eyes. Don't let anyone call it objective when it's just a lid no one bothered to unscrew. When she's gone, I sit with the machine's small tremor and the green blink like sun on a pond. I know what they'll call me, difficult, nitpicky. Fine. My job is hearing what everyone else decided is background. I coil the jumpers like old ribbon and kill the lights. Through the glass, I catch Evan laughing with strangers. Maybe he's better with lenses than I am. Good, we run on different bands. That night Harriet texts. Sam says come by for BBQ tomorrow. We should talk before the next round. I can taste smoke before I get there. Blood family can miss each other's channel. Chosen family retunes until they don't. I slide the AAR into my pack and step out. The machines settle to a long exhale, leaving just enough good silence to hear what tomorrow needs. The Coles backyard opens like a well-thumbed book. Low strings of warm bulbs, grass still damp after rain, a wood table with a round scorch where the smoker sat too close one summer. Sam stands over the black steel lid, smoke rolling out warm as memory. He doesn't ask about Evan or the will. He just squeezes my hand, short, firm, then lifts a slab of brisket to the board. Listen to this first, he says. The knife whispers through the meat. My stomach answers with a low, honest sound. Martha's early, hair tied back, a light jacket slung over a chair. She pours iced tea into a glass stamped with the local basketball team, the cubes clicking like beads. After you swapped that fan, we got props, she says, the look in her eyes retelling the highway pileup without needing the words. Harriet comes out of the house with a clipboard. Mint hand soap lingers on her sleeves, glasses low on her nose. She lays the file on the picnic table and doesn't open it yet, like an instrument that needs tuning before the song. We eat in the kind of ritual no one names. Sam cuts, drizzles a little sauce, throws on salt, passes plates. We chew the first bite in quiet. The smoke climbs into my head. For a second, I don't think about antennas or licenses, only the steady metronome of Sam's knife. He used to say don't cut in the middle if you want a clean signal. Sam muses, catching how I'm watching the blade. I nod, swallowing slow. We learned that on the mountain, too. After the third slice, Harriet taps the clipboard. We should talk before it gets noisy. Her voice is level. Evans hired a PR shop and a big law firm. They'll push a narrative that the right leader understands people, not wires. They may try to nitpick the trust on procedure. What's our exposure? I ask. We're fine, she says, plain. But they'll create noise, open 5 side channels so no one can hear the main one. Sam adds, noise is still sound, just not the kind you keep. He slides me a pickle. Balance the bite. Martha dots her brisket in sauce, thinking out loud. My folks don't care who holds the logo. They care if the emergency channel works. But headlines tell a different story. I open my AAR pad and spread what I drew that afternoon. Site sketch, list of dead fans and filters, 3 weak spots along the river. I set them beside Harriet's legal copy. My pages are smudged with a ghost of oil. Hers are crisp, corners trimmed like orders. This is what I've got, I say. We have to translate these into human, otherwise it's just machine noise. Tell it with the map, Sam says, eyes bright like he's found the spice he wanted. He points at the riverbank. What's this say? This, I reply, is where an ambulance hears turn around 3 seconds late. Martha props her chin on her hands, and 3 seconds is an artery. Harriet opens her file. Inside, the next round agenda attendee list, a bolded copy of the trust clause granting authority over the emergency contract. This is your legal footing, she says, mother gentle, courtroom steel. So you understand the responsibility that comes with it. They don't need VSWR. They need to know why in a rainstorm you're the person they can call. Okay, I say, pulling a pen. I draw a simple circle, shade the dead zone right in the margin. Tell it through people. I arrow to SLA, storm mode backup required. Sam laughs, told you people first. And time, Martha adds. Say how long, say how late. I write. Delay equals X seconds, right arrow a heartbeat waiting. Harriet watches us turn cartography into sentences like a conductor listening to the section lock in. She doesn't interrupt, just reminds me, cut the jargon, say backup path, not secondary channel unless you have to. Night wind threads the fence. Neighborhood kids squeal in an inflatable pool. Sam drops the smoker lid and rests his palm on it like a chest, calming down. Echo, in uniform you live on two things, teammates and discipline, same here. Teammates are the folks out there. Discipline is that map. He drags over a low chair and faces me. You got a plan for day after tomorrow. If Evan steers the narrative you're chasing. You set the frame, infrastructure first, studio after. Checklist lights up in my head. I'll bring the binder. Section 1, status, dead fan, new filter, stability numbers. 2, coverage map in 3-week spots. 3, FCC/first net compliance. 4, life cycle costs, maintenance budget. 5, 90-day plan. Martha snaps her fingers. Lead with the pile-up case, wake them up. I add, case, river highway, signal before / after. Harriet pulls the sauce bottle to weight the papers. Evan will show up with talkers and business cards. Don't look at them, look at the decider. Ask one question, when the storm hits, do you want to hear copy or do you want to see a new logo? I laugh, Sam does too. Martha claps once. Short, Sam says, on frequency. After dinner, the air snaps clean. Sam takes me to the garage, racks of tools, a ladder, a corner radio glowing like an old dog still guarding. He turns it on. White noise pours down like bead rain. He rides the dial slow until a voice breaks then holds, Civic Net talking about a cat stuck in a tree. Hear that, he says. The world looks like chaos. Inside the hash, keep what matters. I stand with my binder under my arm, listening to that far voice through a little tunnel. Got any promises you want me to keep? I half joke. Sam weighs it. Keep yours, and when you can, pay it back. He studies me like the math just settled. If this goes the way it should, think about a fund, call it whatever. Build it like this smoker, patient, low, feeds folks through a season. Back at the table, I fold the map into easy open panes and clip it into the binder behind a one-pager for civilians. 1, green lights on. 2, fans spin. 3, backup live. 4, riverbank hears. 5, 90 days, filters, tests, training. Harriet eyes the binder like a shield. Day after, she says, get there early, sit on my left, I'll nod when it's you, keep it tight, they'll ask for the rest. She slides her glasses up. If they ask what you want at the end, don't say authority, say responsibility. I click my pen shut. Feel the binder's weight, heavy enough not to blow off a table, light enough to run with. Martha helps me gather plates. At the sink, she asks softly, like naming something we both already know. If you win, you'll do what I think, won't you? What's that? Scholarship for women vets in comms. I've got 2 kid sisters. They're smart. Around here, people tell them to do nails or sit a register. If they hear someone like you say come into this field, they'll believe. Through the window, the yard is black with tree shapes. I hear Sam in the garage, Harriet's pen, my own note on the map, people first. Yeah, I say, voice even, chest warm as coals. If we win, we do it. At the door, Sam hands me a butcher paper parcel tied with bakery twine like a holiday present. Harriet tucks a copy of the trust clause into my binder with a sticky that says, read before bed. Martha squeezes my elbow. If you get shaky the day after tomorrow, look at someone you want to save. I'll be at the back. I don't shake, I smile. I retune. I walk the pavers, shoes whispering. The bulbs hum softer behind me. On my back seat, the binder lies next to warm brisket. Smoke has crept into the paper. The dash light blinks. I remember I need gas and think, a lot of hands will try to flip the board soon. I've got a map. I've got my people. Down the hill into town, I test Harriet's line aloud, tuning breath and pitch. When the storm hits, do you want to hear copy or do you want to see a new logo? It fills the car. No audience needed. I flick on the radio. A half-finished ballad gets cut by a flood advisory for the riverbank. The arrow on the map in my head lengthens to touch it. Somewhere out there, a kid sleeps under a steady fan. I hope it doesn't quit. I roll on. In my mind, a relay lamp blinks green, small, stubborn, as if it were a promise. The conference room was bright enough to sting. Glass cleaner haze in the air, ceiling speakers leaking a nameless loop. Evan arrived early, suit tailored knife-sharp, pocket square folded like a blade. He set his tablet down and smiled at everyone as if they were lenses. "Let's start with vision," he said. Slides bloomed. A wave-shaped logo, gradients shifting by season. He talked brand, engagement, community inspiration. The mock video was pretty people under neon, and it all slid smooth, like a glossy dream taxiing for takeoff. My fingers found the edge of my binder. The cover still smelled faintly of Sam's BBQ from last night. Harriet sat to my left, steady eyes, pen ticking the rim of her water glass. Across from me, the county rep, gray at the temples, lanyard creased, flipped a thin packet without once looking at the neon. When Evan landed on, "Will be a cultural bridge," the room gave a polite ripple of applause. The county rep didn't clap. She breathed out through her nose. Harriet tilted her head, our go signal. I stood, pulled the binder in, popped the rings. "I'm starting with infrastructure," I said, plain. Evan exhaled through a smile. One of his consultants leaned back and spun a pen like he was warming up to be bored. I slid the first photos across. A dead auxiliary fan furred with dust, a filter pad black as a chimney. "We swapped this fan on the West Hills site this week. Before that, the failover path had abnormal latency. After, the lines stabilized. Here are the before/after plots." I pushed 2 charts, black and white, jagged turned smooth. "I'm not anti-brand," I added, "but the best story is the one that runs." I flipped a large format coverage map onto the table, edges taped so they wouldn't fray. The paper made a soft orchestra rustle as it settled. I pointed to the riverbank. "This is an edge. The river wind pushes the signal back. Without re-aiming the backup antenna, we leave a dead zone. 2 mornings ago, EMS reported silence here for several minutes, then it came back after the fans swap. Case study, the highway pileup. An elderly passenger trapped. No melodrama. I kept my voice as flat as water and let the numbers do the ripple. From the end of the table, Martha nodded, fingers laced under her chin. "How many minutes of silence?" the county rep asked. 3 to 4, depending where you stand," I said. 3 minutes is an artery," Martha said. "No wink, no theater." A consultant jumped in. "An outlier. Globally, our coverage is fine." I tilted the map so the light washed the shaded area and changed its color. "Fine is a dangerous word in emergency work," I said. "A broken bar in a song is still a song. A broken line in a call can be a world." Evan scoffed. "Poetic. Numbers, then." I faced the rep. "Your SLA requires a backup channel under storm conditions. Hurricane season is coming. 3 priorities: West Hill, fans, riverbank, antenna angle, downtown rooftop, grounding." I slid a 1-page checklist. 1 fan spin, 2 backup live, 3 grounds bright. I added a small zip bag, the spent filter pad limp as an old lung. "Echo," Harriet prompted gently. "Compliance." I laid out the FCC/first net excerpts, the quarterly test schedule highlighted. "If we execute Evans' move rooftop gear now for an open studio proposal immediately, we risk missing the quarterly test window and creating a temporary outage. My order of operations: Stabilize infrastructure, publish a maintenance window, test again, then decorate the studio. I said decorate like it weighed nothing, which is where it belonged. Evan slid in velvet voice. No need to scare folks. We can modernize and maintain. We just need budget. No one's scared, the county rep said, her first interruption. We need a prioritized emergency plan. Evan flicked his eyes at me and, without meaning to, yielded the floor. I opened life cycle costs. 90-day estimate, fans and filters, grounds, backup alignment, a fresh riverbank survey. Less than a single quarter's PR blitz. In return, ambulances at the edge don't have to turn around. Another consultant squinted at my Riverwind note. Scientific proof for this wind corridor claim. I set down a satellite topo and overlaid the handheld measurements and EMS logs. Correlation isn't causation, but these shapes match north of 70%. If you want, we'll run a live afternoon wind test. I'll go. Evan laughed, trying to make it light. You always did love climbing. I love maintaining what I'm responsible for, I said, eyes on the rep. If you approve this sequence, I'll send the maintenance calendar with before/after reports. When the storm hits, you'll hear copy. The room held one long inhale. Harriet leaned back and set her pen down. Sam didn't smile. He stared at the rep like a man listening for the final chord. She nodded once. I agree with Echo's priorities. Infrastructure first, studio second. I want an updated map every 2 weeks through the storm season. Evan's smile slipped at a corner. A consultant started to say brand impact, and Harriet cut in without raising her voice. The best brand is delivering the county contract. The rest is agenda item 2. I gathered the map, left a photocopy on the table, the one with pencil shading over the river and a note in the margin. 3 min equals an artery. Martha's mouth bent into the smallest smile, the look of someone watching a clotted line go clear. Evan wouldn't meet my eyes. He fussed his pocket square like a man ironing reality into compliance. Fine, he said at last. We'll do it that way. Meanwhile, my team keeps building the narrative. Start with this one, I said, snapping the binder shut. Yesterday on the river edge, an old woman kept breathing because the radio stopped going empty. That's our narrative. Harriet closed by sliding 2 schedules, one to me, one to Evan. Echo, 90-day plan by close of business. Evan, studio concept only within Echo's maintenance windows. I nodded. Evan nodded a beat late. As we stood, the county rep came over and shook my hand. Warm palm, short nails, a blue ink fleck on her thumb. When the storm hits, I want to hear copy. We'll make sure you do, I said. In the hallway, Sam walked beside me. He didn't ask how I felt. He offered a mint. Reset your palate, he said. I cracked it. Menthol snapped a clean lane through my head. The coverage map unfurled again behind my eyes. The shaded voids looked like pockets of bad quiet waiting to be filled. Somewhere down the corridor, Evan's PR team was huddling, pocket squares sharp as unsolved problems. That next round would blow in soon enough. I hugged the binder, smelled paper, smoke, mint, and the steady thing that saved me on ridge lines and in rooms like this. If I clear the noise, the signal will say the rest. The email beat sunrise to my inbox, subject line shaped like a spear. Cease and explain. Evan's law firm sent it and CC'd half the town. They were concerned I'd unilaterally interfered with infrastructure, caused disruptions, and manufactured a maintenance crisis to grab budget. I read it slow, like scanning a dirty log, half true, half spin, designed to exhaust attention, not find truth. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. A local blogger posted, "Soldier turns station into barracks." A split image of me under a rack, forehead dusty, pasted next to Evan in a crisp suit. The comments did the usual laps. Let real experts handle it. What's an SLA anyway? I skipped the lobby and headed straight for the equipment room. Metal smells honest. It doesn't know context. Either it runs or it doesn't. I opened the cabinet and checked the logs. On the pile-up timestamp, the aux fan had died. Temperature spiked. Alert sent. After the swap, numbers dropped. I grabbed screenshots and tucked them into the binder. When I looked up, Evan filled the doorway, hands in his pockets. A PR handler hovered behind him, pen ready like a hypodermic. "You've seen the coverage," Evan said in his interview voice. "We need you to stop these freelance interventions." I pointed at the printouts. "Here, evidence." He gave them a glance and a shrug. "Who's to say you didn't stage this to play hero?" I glanced at the handler taking notes. "If I liked staging," I said, "I'd have picked a different career. If you want to talk facts, meet me in the conference room. If you want footage, the studio's upstairs." I called Harriet. She listened to everything, didn't interrupt. "Do not engage online," she said. "Send a short statement. We're operating under the trust and FCC/First Net rules. Technical exhibits attached. I'll handle the rest." Sam popped onto the call. Had I eaten? No. "Swing by for coffee," he said. "Then we're inventorying the storage. Work makes noise fade." I tied my hair back, hugged the binder, and drove. The storage unit sat on a quiet road, bored concrete, and a roll-up door that squealed like an asthmatic harmonica. Sam's key looked bigger than his palm. Dust and damp wood pushed at us as the door climbed, like stepping into an old tape reel. Shelves held speakers, coils, a box stenciled antenna parts, a dented file cabinet. Sam tossed me gloves. "Spare gear for the backup channel. Old licenses if we're lucky. Your dad kept things the way people keep memories. Not pretty, sufficient." We started on the left. I logged serials. Sam snapped photos. Some pieces still wore my father's handwriting, angled, not fancy, decisive. I thought of Harriet's tell. "I'll nod when it's your turn." No nods here, only pen on paper and boxes thumping the floor. An hour in, sweat tracking my spine, I dragged out a small wooden crate, nailed top, a strip of tape labeled "Spare Old V8 Chef." Sam tapped it and smiled. "Relics." I levered it open. Oilcloth peeled back to reveal two heavy metal radios with round knobs and italic branding from a company long dead in the trades. Under the cloth sat a manila envelope, corners foxed, marked, "Backup Channel License." "Not yet," Sam said, voice slowed. He shut the unit door like he was guarding a candle. The envelope edge felt like a stone lip on a trail. I didn't open it. I slid it into my binder and flagged it red. "Save it for part 7, I half joked. Sam chuckled, but a more serious color crossed his eyes. My phone rattled again. Harriet. Evan's PR pitching upgrading studios for the community to the local paper. I sent a response and offered an interview on infrastructure. Me. "We're inventorying, found something." Her reply, a single exclamation point. I shelved the radio pair by the door and relabeled the crate. "V8 Chef, verify." Sam clapped my shoulder. "Don't let anyone stick it in a museum prop case. Old saves the day when new breaks." Back at the station, the hallway reeked of overused cleaner. A Grady and Twave poster hung crooked, new logo trial, tape still showing. Evan was mid-interview with a local news hit. I passed behind the camera. "Some say the infrastructure trust blocks a modern vision," the reporter prodded. "We honor heritage," Evan said smoothly, "but the community deserves new. We will not disrupt." I didn't stop. Downstairs, I slid a thumb drive in, pulled logs, printed before and after sheets for every site. I added photos of bright new ground clamps, hand-signed the tech's initials and time of replacement. Not a lot of copy, just enough to show a hand had touched actual metal. By mid-afternoon, I pulled the ops crew for a quick huddle. Politics made people shy. "We're not a side," I told them. "We're the signal, morning checklist as usual, look, touch, listen. If anyone pokes you, say, 'Let me show you the log.'" I handed each person fresh gloves and a 4-line card. Swap filters, clean grounds, check backup, record it. Martha dropped in with a bag of donuts. Sugar for loud mouths, she smirked. Her eyes didn't smirk. That blogger wants to interview me. I told him call you. No interviews, I said. Bring him to a site. If he climbs the stairs, he can ask questions with a harness on. That evening Harriet called. The paper wants a formal statement tomorrow. She read me her draft, orders clean. We value content development, but safety and uninterrupted emergency communications take priority. Any studio changes will be scheduled within maintenance windows to protect the SLA. Technical reports are open for verification. I added one closing line. When storms hit, the public deserves to hear copy. Keep that, she said. Sam texted a photo of a half pan of brisket. Come get some if you're up. Late, I sat in my garage with the binder open like a star chart. I took the manila envelope out and set it in front of me. Still no. I wanted to sleep on the weight of not knowing, the way you stand over a switch on a mountain not certain the green will glow. A neighbor's car door thumped, water splashed into a planter, a freight horn sighed far off. Unknown number lit the screen. A man's voice. I wrote that blog. People say you staged a crisis to seize control, got a statement. I looked at the envelope. Tomorrow 9:00, I said. West Hill site, wear shoes with tread, I won't say, I'll let you hear. He snorted, surprised. Deal. Drizzle stitched the morning. The blogger showed right on time, rain shell thin, shoes suspiciously clean. I buckled a harness on him and climbed first. The stair treads were slick. The wind pushed wet grass into our lungs. In the hut I lifted the cover, walked him through the new fan, the fresh filter, the paper logs. He looked like he was seeing, not skimming, for the first time. I triggered a backup test and let him hear the difference between a dead channel and a live one. His face tightened. He stopped filming without noticing. If the fan hadn't been replaced before the pileup, he asked. There's probably one more name in the obits, I said, and no one would know we were here. At the base of the tower he unclipped, lips pressed thin. I'll write. Write what you want, I said. But if you write, include the riverbank. Don't let anyone call it objective when it's just a fan no one bothered to fix. In the truck, I finally opened the envelope. The paper inside was thick, library old. A special VHF license, issued years ago for a river coordination program, with a clause. Automatic renewal if the backup channel's uptime stays above the county SLA and compatible hardware remains ready to activate. Tucked behind it, a note in my father's hand. Keep this as backup. When things go dark, this is the bridge. And a manufacturer's card, this pair tuned for the river run. My pulse hit once hard like a knuckle wrapping a metal cover. This wasn't just a collectible. It was a key, legal and technical, connected straight into the county contract. I slid the papers back, snapped the binder shut. Harriet texted, Brief check-in this afternoon, bring everything. I will, I replied. And one more thing. Beyond the windshield, the river lay gray and muscled. Wind combed ripples into the surface. The noise was still there, articles, comments, attorneys. But underneath it I heard a clean frequency, the kind of quiet that comes just before a string rings true. Part 7 was waiting. This time I'd be the one to flip the switch. I set the binder on the table, the manila envelope on top like a gold vein across white paper. Evan was already there, hair razor neat, eyes sliced thin. Harriet gave the smallest nod, my green light. I found something in storage, I said, opening the envelope. I laid out a thick, yellowed license. This is a special VHF license issued for River Corridor Emergency Coordination. Clause 4, 2 reads, Automatic renewal if the backup channel maintains uptime at or above the county SLA and compatible hardware remains ready to activate. I flipped over a small manufacturer's card beside 2 photos of old radios. This pair was tuned for the river run. They look ancient. They're the right key. Lose them or ignore them and the emergency contract goes into review. The county rep leaned in, lifted her glasses and read, slow, careful, like checking a patient's pulse. If this holds, she said, it explains why the contract still requires a legacy backup channel alongside the new system. We asked once why not move everything. The answer was, in long storms the new system can overload. She looked up. I want a field check. We'll go now, I said. Evan snorted. A yellow slip and 2 scrap bricks can pivot a contract. A camera lens peeked through the doorway. He angled toward it. You're telling fairy tales. Sam's voice stayed even. Even fairy tales have rule books. This one's written in ink. Harriet raised a hand before it turned into a fight. To the river site, she said. If it talks, it talks. Rain hammered the windshield on the way, a tarp being pulled across the sky. Martha drove an EMT unit ahead and requested a test channel. We turned onto a dirt spur. The little backup hut hid in the trees like a secret box. I opened the lock. Damp metal and leaf rot breathed out. I set the old VHF pair on the bench, fed a step down, and clipped the auxiliary antenna exactly by the book. Martha keyed in, her voice sounding like it stood behind a water curtain. Dispatch, EMT3 checking river backup. On the test meter a green dot woke like an eye opening. EMT3 copy, I answered. On screen, the noise floor eased down the way a shoulder lets go of weight. The county rep pressed her ear to the tiny speaker. Her eyes changed. Less doubt, more recognition. I remember this tone from my intern days, she said, almost smiling. This channel holds better when the rain runs long. We saved a stroke case on it once. Evan folded his arms, filmed a clip, trying to drag the story onto his stage. So when we upgrade the studio, we just keep the antique for aesthetics. No, I said, meeting his gaze. We keep it because your county SLA ties renewal to uptime on this very channel during emergencies. Without it, you risk a breach, and your cultural bridge has no roadbed. I tapped the license. The renewal condition sits right here. Sam leaned a shoulder against the door and looked out at the brown water. A bridge has to touch ground at both ends, he murmured. Logo at one, line at the other. Harriet called her clerk and had the license scanned right there to append to the record. She turned to the rep. If we fold this backup into a standing maintenance schedule with biweekly uptime reports through storm season, you keep the contract terms. Not just keep, the rep said. If numbers hold through the season, we'll consider increasing maintenance support. I want to hear copy in every long rain. We ran a cross-check. Martha walked downriver into the old dead zone. On the meter, the dot hopped like a small fish. EMT3 check came through my handset, no breakup. I penciled a mark on the map, a blank now filled. Evan stood off, phone to ear, voice lower than usual. Words drifted back. License, clause, reframe the story. I let them go. I watched the green continue, steady as a heartbeat finding its cadence. When the rain eased, we returned to Harriet's office for a short session. She dropped the fresh scan into a red-tabbed section. New exhibit, she said. Special VHF license plus backup uptime requirement. We propose updating the 90-day plan, maintenance cadence for this channel, operator training, and a clear storm mode switch procedure. The county rep initialed the corner without fuss, the habit of someone who decides quickly when the conditions are clear. Evan dragged out his chair. His smile sat crooked like a sticker on a dusty surface. Well, great, he said, fishing for footing. We'll fold this technical heritage into our brand story. The community will love the retro angle. Call it reliable before you call it retro, I said. People don't care if it's pretty. They care that it works. One of his consultants popped up. So what's the value of those old radios? Should we add them to the asset list for museum content? Sam smiled, not unkindly. They're worth exactly what they give when you call and they answer. Harriet slid in silk firm. Legally, their trust infrastructure under Echo's management. Any museum or display use sits behind operations and compliance. Full stop. Evan started to wind up again, but the county rep closed her folder and stood. I've got a call. See you in 2 weeks with an updated map. She shook my hand once, clean and brief. Today, she said, copy. When she left, the room lightened as if someone cut a compressor. Evan drifted close and kept his voice low, trying to hide the edge. Where do you keep pulling these cards from? From storage, I said just as low. From paper, from things you think are dust, and from listening while you're busy talking. He barked a laugh with no joy. Then listen to this, I'll frame this as a team win. Do it, I said. As long as when storms hit, the public hears copy. Credit can split however you like. I didn't add that my silence isn't empty. It's a different band, the working one. Dusk, I cut across the lot toward the downtown rooftop. The cloud deck opened a skinny seam of sunlight that poured onto the antenna like a glowing wire. I thought of my father, his slanted hand on the note, keep this as backup. When things go dark, this is the bridge. I thought of Martha, 3 minutes, 1 artery. I thought of Sam and the promise to build a fund for women vets. A list clicked on in my head. Retrain the storm mode switch. Print a palm-sized quick card for the hut. Schedule a long-range drill with EMS. A new line. Draft the grant to refresh gear while keeping the old bridge like you keep old tendons. On the roof, the wind was cool and the city breathed. I leaned into the equipment box and watched the green blink like a small star. More noise would come, articles, clips, side-mouth jabs. Noise isn't the enemy. It reminds me to tune the filter. I texted Harriet, online backup steady, sending drill schedule. She sent back a thumbs up, rare, warm, to Sam, any brisket left. Photo reply, a near-empty pan, your shares saved. From Martha, old man at the river got discharged today, copy. I smoothed the binder's edge like a hand over a hand-drawn chart. Beneath the green lights, the city wasn't loud. It bowed its head for a second. That silent frequency wasn't a void. It was the moment when everything sits in the right place, just before you press transmit. I pressed. Not to say much, just to say it right. Tomorrow, I'll write the training plan and the fund proposal. Tonight, I'll let the city finish the sentence with its steady breathing. The county meeting room had no red carpet, just old wood that creaked like a reminder to step lightly. Windows faced the river, where last week's rain had pushed the water to the lip. On the table sat a thin packet that was heavy in the right places. The 90-day plan, the long-range drill schedule, the switchover procedure, photos of a new fan, the old filter pad pinned like evidence, and a fresh scan of the V8 chef license. The county rep dotted her pen on the last page and looked up. If uptime holds like the past 2 weeks, we'll renew under the existing terms and add maintenance support. She met my eyes, and we want 1 full county drill on a long storm scenario. I nodded. We're ready. Harriet smiled, the kind of smile that vanishes if you blink. Sam didn't. He drew a small breath, like a man who's just tuned a string to pitch. Evan was there, darker suit than usual, pocket square ironed flat. He said the line he had to say, "We're committed." This time I believed part of it, not the promise, but the fact he wasn't looking for a camera. After the signatures, we formed a small circle. Martha unrolled the riverbank map where old dead zones were crossed out and replaced with clean color. "We caught a preterm delivery last week," she said, shoulders dropping like a pack set down. "Backup channel held. We heard every drug name." No one clapped. We looked at the map the way you look at a kid who's finally passed the fever. The full county drill ran on a gray afternoon. I split the team 3 ways: rooftop downtown, the river site, and a roaming outer ring crew. I handed everyone a palm-sized plastic card. Switch channel enable backup say copy timestamp switch back when stable. Martha took hers with a nod that said she'd always done it. Now it had a name. Evan stood with the studio group and actually listened while I briefed. I assigned him. You'll be in the booth simulating a partial outage. When I call backup, you count beats and announce. He looked at me, no smirk this time. Got it, he said. The drill ran smoother than it had any right to. We had harmless hiccups, a loose jack, someone reading the wrong channel once, but those are the errors people remember how not to make. At the end, the county rep added a neat initial to the file's margin. Drill, copy. That night, the Coles' backyard lights came on again. The brisket smelled like the first time, but the air was different. Less worry, more talk. Sam told the story of the first radio he ever fixed. Harriet told one about winning a case on the strength of a piece of paper everyone thought was useless. Law is a map, she said, but no one goes anywhere without a real road. Martha laughed when Sam glazed the meat. Real roads are a little sticky. I opened a mailer on the table, rolls of filter media, fresh gloves, a paint pen, and a small aluminum plaque engraved. Here, when storms hit, we say copy. Sam held it like a birthday cake. Where do we hang it? River Cabin, I said, for the night shift to sea. I told them about the fund, no speech, just a simple story. I want a scholarship for women veterans going into communications. First round is small, books, tools, exam fees. Call it the Silent Frequency Fund. I waited for a relay lamp to flick green. Harriet spoke first. I'll handle the paperwork, bylaws, and tax ID. Sam said, I'll feed the fundraiser. Smoke convinces people who don't trust numbers. Martha said, I've got 2 kid sisters. I know the first 2 names. Evan was quiet, then nodded into his glass. I'll handle comms, he said softly. Not for hype, so they know where to apply. I let out a breath. The fence took a light wind like the sound of a page turning. On plaque day, the river sky was rare bright. The ops crew and I climbed with a drill and a bag of screws. Martha waited below with water and a sack of day-old donuts. The plaque took its spot. The screws bit into dry wood with a friendly squeak. I stepped back a half pace and read the engraving. Something shifted in my chest, the way a river stone rounds off after years of water. Take a picture, Martha said. I shook my head. Take it with the people who will use it, I said, pointing at the dust-streaked faces. We laughed. No one hunted the perfect angle. Later the photo looked a little skewed, a little blown out, but it held people who just learned the name of a good habit. The 90-day plan found its rhythm. Each morning I made a loop. Palm the ground lugs to feel the cool, listen for fan tone, watch green LEDs blink like opening eyes. Evan stopped showing up in the rack room so often. When he did, he said, hey, instead of issuing orders. The studio repaint ran late, but when the paint dried, no one had to drop a call to dodge the smell. The local paper covered the long storm drill with a gentle, non-clicky headline. When storms hit, they say copy. The blogger sent me the link and added, I climbed the tower, sorry about the old post. I sent back a simple emoji and still felt my calves ache at the memory of wet rungs. At night I went up to the downtown roof. The city breathed under my boots. Headlights streamed like fireflies along wire paths. The cabinet's thermometer sat on a kind number. I thought of my father, his slanted hand on that license, the note that said, when it goes dark, this is the bridge. I thought of the county rep, the blue ink fleck on her thumbnail the day she signed. I thought of Sam's patient smoker, Harriet's underlines, Martha's nights turning bad news into not as bad news because of a channel nobody noticed. I thought of Evan, learning to stand a half step back so the signal could talk. I sent the end-of-day email, a short report and photos of the old river voids now filled in. I added a last line. Silent Frequency Fund. Open 2 applications in. Harriet replied with one word. Good. There were no fireworks, no choir. Just the cabin fan's even lullaby, the cool of clean metal, and a patch of silence that wasn't cold. Sam's line came back to me. Inside the hash, there's always something worth keeping. Here, what we keep is the word copy traveling through rain, across a river, and through the seams of ordinary life. On my way off the roof, I put a hand on the cabinet the way you touch a friend's shoulder and thank it for running. Driving home, I swung by the Coles' backyard. The bulbs were still on. Sam had saved a warm, paper-wrapped cut of brisket. On the table, Harriet had left a card. "Don't forget to sleep. Tomorrow you have to listen again." I sat a while, ate slow, listened to insects in the hedge and a freight train whining over a bridge miles away. The world is big and loud, but somewhere a silent frequency keeps room for the sounds that matter. I wiped my hands, stood, latched the gate. Above, an antenna carved a thin line into the cloud. Tomorrow someone will call again, probably from the river's edge. I'll answer, not loud, not heroic, just enough to be heard. And at the other end, someone will let out a breath and say, "Copy."